Hey everyone, I wanted to take some time to let you know a little bit about the accounting profession. We spend 32 weeks, if you take 301 and 311, we spend 32 weeks together and we talk a lot about accounting and how to do it, majoring in it, all kinds of things, but we don't actually talk about what do accountants do. What does it look like if you decide to become an accountant? So I thought maybe we'd take some time and do that. So we're going to do just a little bit a week so it's not too overwhelming and it gives you something to look forward to. Okay, so I've split accounting into 4 buckets. Financial accounting, which is really what you're learning in 301. Finance, which includes a lot of what we do in managerial accounting in 311. There's also other parts of finance that we don't actually do in either of these accounting classes, but it's close enough, I thought we'd include it. Tax, big part of accounting, and then other, and other's just going to have all kinds of other stuff that basically don't fit into any of these 3 things, so we're going to stick them together. All right, so we're going to start this week with financial accounting. And the job I wanted to talk about is public accounting, a financial statement auditor. And I want to start with that because that is really the traditional job that a CPA performed. So a CPA is a certified public accountant, and the purpose of getting that license, it used to be that it was so that you could perform independent examinations of another company's financial statements and then give an opinion as to whether they appear to be free of material misstatement. And so that was kind of the traditional path. And in fact, it used to be that in order to get a CPA license, you had to work in financial statement auditing, or what they call assurance or attestation work. It varied. In California, it was 2 years. In New York, it was 3 years. I think Arizona was 1 year. It just varies state by state. Licensing is a state thing. And you had to do that in order to get a license. Now, most states have changed their laws, and so now you can become a CPA in California without ever working in public accounting, but there's actually 2 different licenses. So if you were to look people up, if they have an A, they have an attestation license, which means they did their time in public accounting, and then the other one I think is a P, a professional license. It means that they went a different route, and either is totally fine. Okay, so what do... and then the other thing I want to say about public accounting is, or let me just jump into it. So public accounting is, so after you graduate, you'll take the CPA exam. So you graduate with a degree in accounting. You don't have to have a degree in accounting as long as you've taken the accounting classes. You can still recruit for it. I know sometimes people major in math or other things, but let's say you major in accounting. And then you right out of school, you'll go to work for what we call a public accounting firm who's doing these assurance services where they're doing financial statement audits. And then while you're working, you'll probably take the CPA exam and pass it, and at some point get your license. You don't need your license before you start. In fact, very few people have it because of the experience requirement. All right, and so you're going to be, basically what it looks like is you're going to work on teams, and you're going to go out to different clients. So you may go to this client for a couple weeks and that client for another week. And you're going to look into their financial statements. So you may do that by reviewing documents. So in your first year, you're probably going to review a lot of accounts payable invoices, maybe some accounts receivable invoices, some copies of checks, bank statements, things like that. So you'll be reviewing documents. You also do a lot of your work by inquiry. So you'll be talking to the controller, to the CFO, to the accounting manager, maybe to the president of the company, and gathering information. Public accounting, if you're a social person, is a great profession for that. You don't have to be, but you're generally working in teams, and you work in different teams, and because you're out at the client site and not at the office, a lot of times you'll go out to lunch together, or maybe go out for a happy hour on Friday nights, stuff like that. You're also going to be interacting a lot with the client. So again, at all different levels of the client. So you'll be, over time you'll get really comfortable really talking to an accounts payable clerk, a controller, a president. Eventually even you'll be giving presentations to the board of directors. Depending on the size of your office, the size of your clients, I worked in Sacramento, so I worked on a lot of different clients because we didn't have any huge clients. If you work in a bigger office, you may only have one client you work on full time, which, you know, has the benefit of, you know, you're going to the same office every day, and that's kind of nice. The downside is you don't get to see as many different kinds of companies, and that's what I liked about being in Sacramento. So I had a girlfriend who went to Houston, and she was full-time on Pennzoil. She worked out of the Pennzoil office, went to Pennzoil every day, and that was her only client. So there's a lot of things that go in between. A lot of times if you're in like Silicon Valley, you'll have a mishmash. And so it's kind of just depending on where you go. But it's a great apprenticeship. And they don't call it an apprenticeship. I call it an apprenticeship because, first of all, they don't pay you as much as you could make if you went straight to being an accountant in a company. The starting salaries, and I'm guessing here because it's really hard to find this data, but it's probably going to be between $50,000 and $60,000 a year, $50,000 and $60,000 a year. So, you know, compared to other jobs you might get with your 4-year degree, that it's going to be maybe a little bit lower. But in the first couple years you work there, you're going to learn so much. Like, it's going to make your head explode, the amount that you learn. And they invest so much time in training you. The biggest thing you develop is really, really strong analytical skills. And so those are going to serve you well throughout your career, whatever you end up doing. You'll get really, really good at just looking at things and saying, does this make sense? Does this make sense? Well, if this is this, this should be this. Does that make sense? And so those analytical skills, I learned a ton. I was only in public accounting for 2.5 years, but I learned a ton. The other reason that I would recommend public accounting, if you are looking at a career in accounting, is a lot of times when you get into your higher level roles, your controllers, heads of finance, things like that, a lot of times the company in their job description will require or prefer that you have public accounting experience. And a lot of them go even further than that. They want you to have what they call Big Four public accounting experience. The Big Four there's 4 large international accounting firms that do this. They're PricewaterhouseCoopers, or PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, and Ernst & Young. And I don't know that you necessarily get a better experience at these places, but for some reason, a lot of companies, especially public companies, they want specifically their controller to have Big Four accounting experience. So if you're looking long term of, you know, I don't want to do this for my whole life, but I do want to have some of these higher paying accounting jobs, might be good to get a couple years of experience. If you can get at least 3 to 5, I think that's really helpful. I only did 2.5 because that's kind of how I did it. But I worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers. I actually started at Coopers and Lybrand, and then they merged with Pricewaterhouse, and we became PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I always say that was my first acquisition. And when I ended up going to Oracle, I ended up working on about 140 acquisitions. So I always say that was my first. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good idea of public accounting. Next week we'll do this again. Hopefully it'll be warmer. My fingers are turning blue out here. And we'll talk about another profession that you could choose, or another path you could choose if you decide to major in accounting. All right, see you then.